Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to if you're new. Today I'm doing a working holiday in Australia tips and tricks video. As I remember when I first came out here, I watched so many of these videos. I found them really helpful. So now I'm in a position that I've been here I've almost completed my first year. So I've been here an entire year. I feel like I have some useful information that will hopefully help someone if you're sitting at home planning to do a working holiday. I'm basically here to convince you that you should, because it's been the best choice that I made. I've made a whole little list of things, just a lot of things that I didn't necessarily expect or you don't really get told. I'm gonna try and give you all the little ins and outs of how I've been able to survive here for a year. So I thought I would start this video by basically giving a little bit of a background so you understand the perspective that I'm providing. So I was 18 when I decided that I wanted to do a working holiday visa. I finished secondary school in England and I was like, I don't really want to go to uni. I'm going to do a classic gap year kind of thing in Australia. I originally wanted to do a ski season in Canada, but it just ended up being so much work that I was like, nah. I then was like, okay, well, the only sane idea of what I should do is go to Australia, as everyone and their mum is basically going to Australia. I think I applied in about October time, so I deferred university for a year. I came out just before my 19th birthday, so in November time, and I've been here, 10 months? My visa will be coming to an end in November. I'm not planning on renewing my second visa this year, so I was the classic gap year girl. Now, I must admit, I'm not planning on going to university. I've decided that that's not for me. But also, you don't have to be a gap year person to do this. Like, my boyfriend who I met out here, yes, I did meet a boy out here. He's 23 and he decided I'm coming out. You just meet so many people from all different areas of life doing the working holiday visa. If you're like, I want to do it, then there's no age limit. Well, there is. There is an age limit. You have to be 18 to 35. And also to stay in hostels, which is primarily the way you stay when you come out and do a working holiday visa, you have to be 18 to 35. So that's just something to know. I'm gonna split this video, but basically I'm gonna give you all the information that you might need to know about the working holiday visa. If you've never heard about it before and you're just like, I really want to go to Australia but I don't know how, whatever position you're in, I'm here to hopefully give you some of the details. I applied for a working holiday subclass 417 working holiday visa. As a British citizen applying for a visa, I had to apply for the 417, which you can basically get 3 years of visas. So I was applying for my first year working holiday 417. You can come out to Australia for 12 months. You can leave and come back to Australia within that time. You can work for, I think it's about 6 months, but I haven't come out here and got a job and they're like, you can only work here for 6 months. Basically, you have 12 months to work. You can study for up to 4 months on this visa, which I didn't actually know, but you apply through the Australian government website and you have to create like an IMI account, which is very easy once you go on there and you find the working holiday page. There's like an apply now and then it asks you to sign up for an IMI account, which is like the immigration account that you have to apply through. The big thing that I love about this working holiday visa is in the name, but you get to work and travel at the same time, which is why I kind of was gravitated towards it when I was deciding what I wanted to do for my gap year. But if you only want to travel, maybe start looking at like e-visitors and stuff like that, depending on how long you want to be out here for. Like some people come out and do a working holiday visa and never work, and they don't stay here for this like whole 12 months, or you save like a crap ton of money and you come out here for 12 months and travel. You could do that too. I personally couldn't. I really love this visa as it gives you an opportunity to come out to a different country and earn money whilst you're traveling and seeing the world. And you basically have to provide certain things in order to apply. So you have to do all your identity documents. Passport's the main one, maybe like driving license. Sometimes you may have to provide a police certificate. I didn't, and a lot of people don't, but if you're like ex-military or something like that, you might have to do something a little bit more. You also, which I was really stressed about when I applied, you have to show evidence that you have $5,000 in like funds. Basically need to know that you're going to be able to get out of the country. You can afford to live as a sort of citizen whilst you're here. I found it really easy to apply, like just making sure you get all your documents correct. The one thing that I did do wrong, so I applied for a new passport just before I came out to Australia. For some reason, I applied for my visa on my old passport. I was trying to get into Australia. They were like, yeah, you don't have a visa for this country. Obviously, tears were shed. Just make sure you apply with the right passport number if you do apply for like a new passport. It worked out fine for me. I think they just phoned the immigration office and was like, are these the same people? mistakes were made. The thing is about getting your visa back. I've heard so many different stories on how long it's taken someone to get their visa back. I was very lucky in the sense I got mine in like 5 minutes. But then I've had friends, and like Sam, he took like 2.5 months to get his visa, which mainly means it's just having to like verify information. Always like little factors that aren't necessarily negative ones. A lot of people get it in 5 minutes. That's a good thing about Australia. Some of them get so quick, so easy in comparison to like Canada. Please note, this is coming from a British citizen. I've spoken to Polish people and German and like Spanish. There's like different visas and it takes different time and different requirements. Just be aware of that. I think it varies from person to person how quickly you're going to get your visa granted. So you've applied for your visa, you've hopefully gotten it back and it's been granted. Very exciting. I remember being so excited. Also a bit scared. I was like, what do I do now? You then have to book your flights. I think I did before I even applied for my visa. So I just randomly booked a flight to New York. One of my dream places to go to was New York. It's like, fuck it, I don't care what happens with Australia. At this point I was kind of planning to go to Australia. Like I was like, yeah, this is the plan. I don't care if I don't end up going to Australia. I just want to go to New York. I had to tell my parents. It was dumb. I had to create like a whole PowerPoint presentation for them why I should do a working holiday visa. In the end they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. I was like, well, also by the way, I've booked my flights to New York. Also doesn't make much sense geographically. I have to go back on yourself. So I booked my flights to New York. How am I going to get from New York to Australia? So, okay, I'll stop over in Honolulu. I'm so glad that I was kind of dumb and did that. Kind of just like shocked the system so much that I was like, I've got this now. I think it ended up working out not too much more expensive. The actual flights weren't too much more expensive to do it that way, as opposed to flying direct. You can't really fly directly from London to Australia. You will have to lay over somewhere, probably in like Asia. Did end up spending a lot more money doing it that way because I was obviously like in holiday mode and like New York was so expensive. Like I did spend far more than if I just flew directly to Australia. If you just want to get to Australia and save your money for Australia, I wouldn't do that. If you want to see more of the world and you kind of, your money is to travel, I would recommend doing that. If you do want to book your flights directly to Australia, it costs about $700 and it takes about 32 hours, I think, the shortest flight I found. Obviously this all just depends on the research you do. I personally decided to land in Sydney because it's a good place to start. You've just arrived, you see the Sydney Opera House, Harbour Bridge, you're immersed instantly. So this is probably something that you need to decide before you come out to Australia, before you've even stepped on the flight, to kind of analyze like how much funds you have and basically what you want to do, whether you want to travel first or work first then travel later. I didn't do this. I had no clue what I was doing really. Like I thought I planned it out really well, but inevitably I didn't. If you decide to work first, I would recommend when you first set foot in Australia, you sort everything out that you will need. I didn't do this till a couple months ago, but ended up not officially working until like 6 months, 7 months into my visa. Decide that you're going to work when you arrive in Australia. You basically firstly have to decide where you're going to work. Then you have to set up a couple of important things that basically allow you to get paid and paid well. So the first thing that you need when you arrive is an eSIM. I got this in Sydney and I got a Optus eSIM, which I think was about $32, which is about like 18 quid. That basically allows you to have your old phone number from England plus an Australian phone number whilst keeping your old SIM. You don't get a new SIM, it's just like put onto it. Worked very well for me. Then you have to apply for your tax file number. This is very important because I hear so many stories of people and they don't have a TFN number and they lose like so much money. So apply for your tax file number. This normally arrives within like 2 weeks. I applied for this in Melbourne and just got it sent to the hostel I was staying at. I knew I was booked into the hostel for 2 weeks, but I applied just before I arrived. Apply if you know you're going to be there for 2 weeks. I want to apply for a bank card. I personally went for Commonwealth, but I also have Commonwealth and Westpac and both are great. You know, most people go with Commonwealth and I've never had any issues with it. And it took me about like an hour. You've applied for your TFN, you have your bank card and your eSIM. You are now pretty much set to work. You've now got to find a job. I personally found it really hard to get a job in like Melbourne, but some people say go to Melbourne, go to Sydney. There's so many jobs going, you'll find something very easily. But then I hear people struggling It's so much on luck. Hand in your CVs. Don't apply on Seek, but they just take like a long time to get back to you and it's not as successful. Going physically into all these places with your CV, being like, hi, my name's Molly. Like, I tried to get a job in Melbourne. I had a trial and then they just never got back to me. Also, Facebook groups. Great idea. People that are like actively hiring. I'll link some down below. There's like Job Backpackers Australia. Make sure you have multiple copies of your CV printed out. If you don't have them printed out, go to Hostelworld. It's this company out here. It's like Staples back in England. It costs about like $10 to do so, even less. And just go around to every single place and hand out your CV. And also don't get defeated if it doesn't work out at first. I struggled for about 5 months trying to find a job. That was also personally on me. Like, I don't think I was trying that hard. I did decide to travel first, and there's so many people online providing different perspectives on trying to find a job. If you decide to work first, pick the location, go into places. If it's not successful, keep trying. It's persistence at the end of the day. The other option, which is my favorite option, is traveling first. Now, this is what most people decide to do. 90% of people decide to travel first, or like travel the East Coast when they first arrive in Australia. So if you want to travel first, there's a couple ways you could do it. You're most likely going to end up doing the East Coast. You arrive in Melbourne or Sydney, do however you want, up the East Coast to about Cairns, and then you start working. That is kind of the typical route people take when they come and do a working holiday visa. The way that you could do it, if you're a bit unsure on what to do and you don't really like planning yourself, you want a bit more guidance and structure and you've struggled to meet people, is doing it through like an agency. And I've met so many people that have done it through that and they've had the most incredible time. And I know there's a couple like Welcome to Travel, My Adventure Project, Happy Travels is a big one. And you can either book those online, like pretty much after you've booked your flights. So you have it set up for when you arrive in Australia and they kind of give you a structured like trip. So they book everything for you. You pay like a set price. They book all your hostels, book all your travel, book all your like tours and stuff. You land anywhere, you know exactly what you're doing. And you normally do this with a group of people for the entire time. It's just a great way to actually meet people. And I do sort of wish that I did do that because like I struggled when I first arrived and then go to one of the like kiosks. They have like little shops and you can actually go talk to people that work for these companies. And they're so friendly. They're normally backpackers themselves. They'll sit you down. You can make your own style one rather than having like the structured that you can kind of buy. Really good way of doing it. However, I did not do that. When I was in Hawaii, I was like, okay, I want to travel first. Like, I think if I'm gonna like settle down and work, I want to at least do a couple weeks of traveling just to see Australia. So I booked a 15-day Greyhound bus. I didn't really book any tours. I didn't really do anything like that. I personally would recommend if you do decide to do like just buy the Greyhound pass and do the East Coast, plan it out. Don't just do it a couple days before you arrive and go, I'm just gonna go. Like really pushed me out of my comfort zone as soon as I arrived. But the one thing I did do, I did a surf camp in 7 Mile Beach, just outside of Sydney, like 2 hours out of Sydney. And that was incredible. It was a week long with, I think it's called Surf Camp Australia or something. Like we were doing like 7 hours of surfing a day. But it was incredible and we got food done for us, so I will link that in the bio as well because you get to meet some amazing people. The instructors are incredible and I just very much enjoyed it. Would recommend. Also, the prices of Greyhound buses do vary, but for the 15-day one, I think it cost me about $369. You can get a 7-day one as well, which is about $200, and then there's a 30-day one as well, which I think is about $400, which I don't really know why I didn't do the 30-day one if there's only a $100 difference. You do the East Coast, you get it all planned out for you, or you plan it out for yourself, running out of money. You've used up all your money. It's happened to the best of us. You decide you need to work. However, I could not find work. I decided that I was going to take a 35-hour bus down to Melbourne. When I thought Melbourne was the place for me, I was like so excited. I had like 1 day left of my Greyhound bus. So I was like, I'm not going to fly down there if I could get it for free. Took the most painful bus drive in my life and end up in Melbourne. It's like it was such cool memories and I loved it. But I now had no money left. Nor did I have a job. I was unable to find a job in Melbourne. I just couldn't do it. Nor was I trying very hard, to be fair. Having too much fun to really try that hard. Like I can't afford to keep paying for hostels without work. So I was like, I'm gonna get a job in a hostel. Like I've heard people say they're gonna get jobs in hostels, but I didn't really think I'd ever do it. So I literally emailed every single hostel along the East Coast that I could think of A couple did get back to me whether they weren't hiring or they were hiring. And the one that did get back to me and basically offered me a job before I even arrived was Mad Monkey Village in Cairns. And so I was like, yeah, why not? Booked a flight to Cairns, started working as the breakfast girl. If you haven't heard about volunteering in a hostel, you can volunteer at a hostel doing like housekeeping, reception. I was like making the free breakfast every morning in like return for free accommodation. So it's like work for a com. It's basically the short term of what you call it. I started by staying off in a 4-man room, and then I moved into the 8-man room, and it was great. Like, it's a very easy way of living because you're working, so you're not having to pay accommodation, which is such a big fund that you're saving. However, Cairns is kind of the party central, which no one told me when I first arrived. So I ended up just drinking for like 5 months straight. I never had any alone time. It was good for me to learn to be around people and make friendships. Like, I genuinely made some of the best friendships in that time because you're living with them. You're literally living with them 24/7. I work in a hostel, and also I did meet a boy in Cairns who also was working for a com. If you don't know, I'm now living in Mount Isa, but Mount Isa is like this little outback town in the centre of Queensland, inland Australia. And I moved out here basically because I got a job out here. I applied on Facebook to like loads of jobs all around Australia. I realised that my time had come to an end in Cairns, but I need to earn money. Like, there's no way I can sustain being out in Australia if I don't go and earn money. So I applied via Facebook groups, which I really recommend if you're like, you don't really care where you end up. There's so many different Facebook groups for specific cities. So I was actually on Australia backpacker jobs, and I found a job in a cafe in Mount Isa, and Sam actually got a job in the mines. So we basically ended up getting a job in the same place, in the literally middle of nowhere. Like, why not? We both packed up in Cairns and moved out to Mount Isa. We're now going strong. Something else that I thought I would touch on at the end of this video, just because I struggled with it quite severely. How to put your mind at ease about meeting people. I was so scared about this when I first arrived, and I really struggled. I'm quite an introverted person, or I have something called social anxiety. So when I was doing like hostels in New York and Honolulu, I didn't really meet anyone. I didn't go out and hang out with anyone. I just didn't really feel comfortable doing it. Nor when I arrived in Sydney. Like, I was in quite a precarious state when I arrived in Australia. It was just scary. Like, you're sleeping in a room with strangers. You're having to make conversation with people. I'm like not good at it. Well, I wasn't good at it. I think I'm getting better after forcing myself to do it for so long. And like I said, staying in a hostel for 5 months definitely helped. Everyone's in the same position. Like, every single person there wants to meet people. We're all so open. The way that social interactions occur when you're backpacking, it's just so unique that it's really hard to explain to someone when you haven't done it. Every friendship goes from like 0 to 100 in a space of like 10 minutes. You meet someone and then 10 minutes later you're talking about your life story. I struggled to actually make the first step and go up and talk to people. So I found, as someone who's quite socially awkward, I use like Facebook groups are great if you're staying in the city for like a longer period of time. My favourite way that I met probably like some of the best people, especially in Melbourne, is Hostelworld. So I booked all my hostels through Hostelworld, which worked great. I never had any issue with that. Once you book a hostel via Hostelworld, you get added to like this group. It's basically everyone in that hostel at that time in a group chat. I found this so good because people would put in there like, oh, hey, like, does anyone want to do this, or know where the best place for this is? And like, it's just this like community. I found it so much easier to do it online. But yeah, I would recommend the Hostelworld group chats. I don't really hear people talking about them. You kind of have to fake the courage of just going, right, I'll do it. It's like, I found some points being quite lonely because I was so socially awkward and I didn't put myself out there. I'd also recommend, if you are trying to meet people, stay in bigger rooms. When I first arrived, I was staying in like 4-man girls only like dorms, which is great. Like, ease yourself into the whole concept of hostels because it is daunting, but once you feel comfortable with it, I would recommend staying in the 12-man rooms, stay in the mixed rooms. Depending on the hostel, obviously read the reviews, understand the type of hostel it is, because there is such a variation. There's some party hostels, there's some more chilled hostels. Only do what you're comfortable doing. You end up meeting very interesting people. It gives you more opportunity to meet them. If you're literally living in the same room, it's so much easier than trying to go talk to someone in the kitchen. And go on tours, do all the stuff. because everyone wants to meet everyone. Just don't get worried about it. It happens naturally, guys, and you cannot predict how it's going to happen. Just have faith. Try and put yourself out there. It's hard. I know it sounds kind of cringy, but like everything you do, you're growing. And especially if you're doing just out of school, or even you're 25 and you're doing it, like you learn on the job. And you can take as many precautions you can. You can watch as many of these videos as you can, but you can never really predict how it's going to turn out, or like how amazing it could possibly be, because in the long run you'll look back and be like, this is an incredible experience. Like I really try not to take that for granted, the opportunity that we get to meet these people, because I've learned so much from meeting all the people that I have. I would not recommend it enough. Do the working holiday visa. I'm hoping to come back out and do a second year in the next couple of years, plus travel and see more of the world. I haven't even done Asia yet. I hope this has been somewhat informative. I think it's mainly just me chatting away. Everything works out in the end. Doing things like this, coming out and doing a working holiday visa, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, can lead to such beautiful and unexpected things. Like I said, it's hard pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, but you can only grow from it. I know it's kind of cringy, but it's true. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check out my other videos, and thanks for staying and listening to me waffle for God knows how long. I love you all. Have a great day.